Welcome to Robotics and Automation News webinars, where you can be part of a global event without leaving your home or office. Attend our live webinars and communicate directly with influential professionals in your industry.
Hello, my name is Abdul Montakim. I'm editor of Robotics and Automation News.com. In this interview, I speak to Chandra Brown, CEO of an organization called MxD, also known as the Digital Manufacturing and Design Innovation Institute. MxD is one of 14 manufacturing institutes affiliated with Manufacturing USA, which is a public-private partnership network supported by the federal government of the US. Manufacturing USA has probably been given more support by the new administration of Donald Trump, which has prioritized revitalizing the American manufacturing sector. So, Chandra Brown, being the CEO of MxD, routinely has discussions with high-level government representatives about broad strategy as well as detailed programs, such as the recent initiative by AT&T to partner with MxD to install 5G for factories. Brown has previously also worked directly with the Obama administration in a similar capacity. In this wide-ranging discussion, Brown explains about the work of MxD and says helping to rebuild the US manufacturing base is not a party political issue and has support across all sectors of society.
My name is Chandra Brown, and I am the CEO of MxD, which is the Digital Manufacturing Institute, headquartered here in Chicago, Illinois. I have spent the last over 25 years in manufacturing. It is my passion. I was the CEO of United Streetcar and an executive vice president at Oregon Iron Works, where I worked for almost 19 years. We built boats and bridges, wave energy devices, streetcars, and so I've always loved manufacturing. From there, I went to work for President Barack Obama. I became the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Manufacturing at the United States Department of Commerce. And that was a great job. I got to basically travel the world promoting US products, both talking about how wonderful the US manufacturing ecosystem is here, and also working on some trade issues. So I spent a lot of time in China and other countries and traveling the world. And then from there, I had my own startup company, basically advising and consulting other executives on manufacturing and a variety of topics. And from there, I came to my current job. I moved from Portland, Oregon, where my old company was, and decided to take a job. At the time, it was DMDII, the Digital Manufacturing and Design Innovation Institute. And probably as you may know, or many of your members would know, we recently changed our name to MxD, which stands for Manufacturing Times Digital. And I am now the CEO of MxD.
It's a very impressive background, I must say. I'm tempted to sort of go down the sort of, I don't know, Barack Obama and that kind of headline-grabbing route, but let's stick with the MxD, because that in itself is quite interesting from what I've read so far on the website. Digital and data and computerization is all very important in today's manufacturing environment, as far as I can tell.
Absolutely. So we believe that the digital revolution is happening and is absolutely critical to the future of manufacturing, not only here in the United States, but honestly, globally. So that is the basic premise that MxD is founded around. So our charter is basically to help the US manufacturing ecosystem become more competitive through the use of the digital thread, if you will, the entire thread. Because it's very funny, our institute is very broad, because as you well know, digital touches every single piece of the manufacturing process, from design all the way through product and delivery, to the sales support on the other side. So we believe in, Industry 4.0, as you talk about, and that it really is going to be critical for, and I appreciate you calling out the small businesses as well. Here at MxD, we are a membership-driven and are very large multinational companies like Boeing and Lockheed and Rolls-Royce. We also have the majority of our members are actually small. So hundreds of our members are small businesses. And you would ask, why are they here? They're here for a lot of reasons, but the main one is to really start to understand this digital thread. So to answer your question kind of more specifically, let's just start at the very beginning, right? So the first thing that needs to be done is we have to assess where a company is at on the digital thread. So you can't really know what to implement, and especially for small businesses where time and money is, incredibly critical. The first stage is to find out, how advanced is your company? Where are you on that digital thread? What kind of information do you need to know to kind of advance quickly and to keep up with competition? So we here have millions of dollars invested in projects, and many of these projects have small businesses just as much as there are large businesses, also part of a project team. And these run the gamut from a variety of different, R&D, workforce, cybersecurity. So all those areas are of extreme importance to both small and large businesses. In particular, I might talk about, let's touch on cybersecurity, for example. It doesn't matter how big or small you are. Obviously, your intellectual property, is the future of your company. So, you care about that, whether you're a 3-person company or a 300,000 company like Siemens, one of our members. So we do a lot to try to help them, move along this digital thread. So in terms of cybersecurity, as you know, if you are hacked or something negative happens where people can access your IT and OT in the manufacturing space, it's really critical in an area that hasn't received a lot of attention. So we have done a cyber secure dashboard, for example. That's one of our projects, and it's just a simple online tool that people can use and kind of look at where are they at in terms of how secure are they. On our shop floor, which you'll be seeing some photos of here, we actually have a test bed that actually visualizes what happens kind of when there's a penetration attack or a digital attack. So we have thousands of people coming through our shop floor, even non-members, who come and they can look and see visually through computers and through bells and whistles, if you will, what's happening with a cybersecurity attack, and then potentially how to fix that and modify it. So that to me is applicable to all companies, large and small.
Right, I would wanted to ask a little bit about just to give listeners and readers possibly a little bit more of an introduction to MxD for those who don't know. So, is it a government-funded agency that helps manufacturers on a local level? Is it national or what?
That's a great question. Yeah, let me talk a little bit about MxD, because I do think the National Manufacturing Institutes are an incredible resource, and not just ours. So let me even back up and talk a little bigger picture. In my past, I used to sit over 10 years ago now on the United States Manufacturing Council when I worked for Oregon Iron Works and United Streetcar. And we were one of many groups that tried to figure out how do we increase competitiveness in the United States. And the idea that was kind of born, again, through a lot of people working together, was manufacturing institutes. And what are these institutes and why do we have them? They are kind of the public-private bringing together. So we basically have businesses, government, and academia all coming together really to solve problems that are too big for any one company to solve, and to really help the overall US manufacturing ecosystem. So that's where the conception, and we honestly looked at what was happening internationally. There's great work being done overseas, whether it's Catalyst in the UK or the Fraunhofer Institutes in Germany. Singapore is doing great work. So we looked at what else had been done internationally. And then at the US, basically almost 6 years ago or so, the first manufacturing institute, which was America Makes in Ohio, was founded. So that was the first one. We here at MxD, the Manufacturing Times Digital Institute, are the second, along with LIFT, which is a lightweight metals institute in Detroit. So right now, National Manufacturing Institute, of which are funded by the United States Department of Defense. So we are one of the 8 that are funded by DoD. The U.S. Department of Defense, and we're very excited about that relationship and the support that they have given us. So we were founded basically in February 2014. So this year we had our 5-year anniversary, and we were started with an initial 5-year grant of $70 million from the U.S. Department of Defense. And that basically kicked things off, which is great. And we recently, if you can go to our website, look at some of our press releases, we recently signed our second 5-year agreement. This year, we were very excited to receive an additional $10 million as part of a 5-year contract renewal with DoD of up to $60 million going over the next years. So we do receive funding from the government, the Department of Defense. And then we also, as I said, have members. So we receive funding. People pay to join the Institute. The Institute is a nonprofit, and we are a national institute. So each one of these institutes has their own topic area. Ours, we like to think, is the best and the broadest. So we're a little biased, but we are the digital, but there's other institutes that are doing fantastic work, and advanced fabrics and lightweight metals and photonics, so each one has their own subject area, and we are a national institute. So we have members from all over the United States.
But one of the things I've noticed about manufactured goods in general, everywhere you look, every product that you see can look complex, and yet it's so cheap. And you wonder where the profit is coming from. How do these people make their money? So I don't know if that has if digitalization, computers can sort of answer that question by making things more efficient and enabling a smaller group of people or even individuals to become manufacturers of sorts. But what is it that products, what kind of products can be successful? What kind of manufacturing things are being enjoying some success? I mean, you would know because you're right in the thick of everything.
So that's a big question. We obviously see a lot here. What I would say is that, you're right. Lots of the cost is coming down in manufacturing, right? And as you said, a lot of complicated products actually could be very simple. And what I would say is the companies that are most succeeding, and even looking at some of our smaller business, like a Tamco, for example, they have basically embraced, digital, if you will. So instead of, kind of the fear of it and robotics and other things, they're the folks that are willing to risk change. So if I'm trying to find a commonality, ask me a big, broad question of, what companies or what products, it really actually comes down to the company and the company philosophy and about the process that they're doing. So the systems integration of, like you said, all those parts. So For example, we do lots of projects here where the main goal is decreasing cost in manufacturing and increasing productivity, if you will, and reliability and quality, the kind of three basic pillars of manufacturing. So those folks who, for example, digital twin, the companies, the manufacturers that embrace, let's say, a digital twin concept, or the use of augmented reality on their shop floor, let's say for training workers of the future. That's a good example of, I think, the companies that are going to succeed and the products that are going to succeed, or the companies that have embraced this systemic and process change. So for example, when you look at some of these small businesses, in the United States, at least most of them, as you mentioned, are small. And a lot of the work history is in an aging workforce, right? So one of the things you must get is what we call the tribal knowledge from your best, let's say, welders and machinists and fitters. Doesn't matter what the product is, it's like you need to get that skill set. So through the use of augmented reality, we demonstrate this on our shop floor, how you can use goggles and you can use digital tools that will help you extract that tribal knowledge, let's say, from your best welder, and be able to train your future welders, just using this as one example, in a much more effective and quick and honestly a higher quality, because everyone's trained to the same knowledge of your best welder. And that's using digital techniques. So it's the companies that are using augmented reality, the companies that use artificial intelligence. So when they're taking tens of thousands of photos to determine weld quality, AI and the logs, they can help you pinpoint, predictive maintenance areas where you can fix something much farther up. And these are all kind of projects that we do here. I'm not talking about specific project numbers and things, but these are the general ideas. And the companies that use those are the ones that are going to be successful, going into the future.
Right, and I don't want to, be too political or partisan, but I just wanted to ask you the difference between the Trump administration and the Obama administration. You having had your obviously direct experience of the Obama administration, now in general, Trump is very pro-manufacturing.
What's great about the United States, and I think most people recognize this, is that manufacturing is a very bipartisan issue here. So while, again, very proud of all the work that was done underneath the Obama administration, the reality is even then, I worked a lot with Republicans and folks on the other side all across the United States, because the reality is everyone in the United States is pro-manufacturing. It doesn't matter your party. It's one of the reasons why I love this issue, because I actually think it brings together businesses and companies and people. I would like to start with that one, we just believe it's very bipartisan. And in fact, talking about where the United States stands and how we're doing, I guess, in that global reshoring, we're pretty excited and very optimistic about the future here in the United States. Again, from being things that were started under the Obama administration, moving forward through the Trump administration. The reality is, I think it was Deloitte, about every 3 years they publish I think it's called a Global Manufacturing Competitiveness Report, and they survey manufacturers all over the world. And one country that's usually been on the top of this list consistently is, of course, China. Because they obviously have a lower cost of labor, and the government is a huge investor, as you know, in their infrastructure and their technologies. But in the most recent Deloitte report, we were happy to say that the U.S. is projected to take the top spot for manufacturing global competitiveness. And you ask, why is that? And again, to your point that you just brought up, the reason for this kind of switch in the United States back in the lead is really the fourth industrial revolution and the integration of IoT and artificial intelligence with the cloud, these other technologies, cyber physical systems. Those are going to drive robotics, as you talked about, and automation. They are going to drive new productivity gains. So the U.S. is actually incredibly really well poised for this opportunity. We have incredible academic ecosystem, and I can't talk enough too about our academic partners that we have here. We have, as well known, one of the best startup and entrepreneur cultures in the world. And we have incredible world-leading technology companies, like the Microsofts of the world and others. And so I think that's a global survey kind of talking about what is the importance of digital manufacturing, and that, we in the United States and obviously globally are taking it very seriously. And again, across the board, all size companies.
You mentioned already that there's a good entrepreneurial, obviously, cultural spirit in the US. But I like the websites like Indiegogo and Kickstarter and other similar websites where I see some really clever new products being made by what looks like, totally new startups. And they're doing very well. That's sort of what is the potential? What is your observations of that startup market?
Well, my observation is actually that it's an incredibly fertile area. And of course, we all know the statistics, and many startups fail. That's a given. But the reality is, like, that makers culture that's here in the United States is really incredible. We have M Hub here in Chicago. There's maker spaces all over, not just the Kickstarters and kind of the bigger ones that you see that are national, but almost in every state across the United States, there's incredible makers, areas where people are coming up with creative new ideas and solutions. And I actually think it's an incredibly vibrant and growing culture. Again, here, at least in the United States, we see a lot of growth in that area. And even on our project team, so, when you talk about our big companies and our small company members, oftentimes, as we're trying to find cutting edge solutions, we may have some startups that are also members and also join a team because they have some really unique technology that maybe hasn't really been put into a practical use case, so we can kind of bring that together and help pressure test some of these new ideas. Same with what comes out of some of the academics here. Obviously we have a very robust academic system, and they're also, part of that startup culture and what they're doing in some of the university labs. And of course, DoD as a whole also does a lot and helps support, some of these startups and the small business innovative research grants that are very popular throughout the United States. So I actually think it is a very vibrant and healthy and growing culture, and really an important piece. Like, in the ideal world, right, you'll have academic solutions that go into a startup who builds something that comes maybe and becomes a small business, and then possibly that's, brought into a much larger business, or grows, the story of Apple, right, and grows into a huge, multinational corporation. I mean, that whole process, every piece and every link in that process needs to be looked at and growing and healthy, if you will, for your whole manufacturing ecosystem, really competitive in a global marketplace.
Right, and onto the larger businesses. I guess specifically I could ask what it is that these companies that are your partners, you call them on your website, what do they, why do they partner with you? What do they get out of partnering with you? I'm thinking things like they're looking for startups to buy, or I don't know, some sort of technical consultation or something, possibly. I don't know. What is it that why do they, what do they get out of MxD?
Yeah, that is a great question. That's the heart kind of what we do here. What do they get out of it? Why should you become a partner member here? So I would tell you, there's a lot of reasons, and a lot of different reasons, especially when you're talking about these large companies. So if you think about it, they have lots of divisions doing different things. So some companies are here for workforce. We've done incredible work, like creating a digital taxonomy, for example. We're working on, with high schools and community colleges, on creating some cyber curriculum and defining what are the cyber roles of the future. So that's one area. So that's talking about, let's say, workforce. The other is these R&D projects. So we like to say we're here to solve problems that are too big for any one company to solve on their own. So a good example, we have Deere and Keller here. So those are two companies that we would think of as pretty strong competitors, right? Yet underneath our membership umbrella, they are allowed to work together easier than they would perhaps.
Sorry, Chandra, the sound cut out for just a second and I didn't catch the names of the companies you mentioned. So in order for people to understand what you're talking about, could you say those names again of the companies that you just said?
Sure. So for example, two of our members are Deere and Caterpillar. They are competitors, but yet they're here. And they're here really for collaboration in the ecosystem, as I said, to solve problems that are too big for any one company. So you look at a large multinational like Siemens or like Caterpillar, or like Lockheed, they all have their own research centers. They have internal labs. They have, incredible resources, right? But sometimes what you don't have is that ability to collaborate. Like, where else can you bring together, like on one of our projects could have 3 or 4 universities, could have a couple startups, could have several small businesses, and a John Deere, a Caterpillar, a Microsoft, an AutoCAD, could all be working together on a project, using Boeing use case. They can all come together, to help and to solve that problem, which will have applicability to all the businesses, including the small ones that are members. So they are here really because of this collaboration and convening. So that's a very big reason. So we talked about workforce, we talked about convening. We also have a future factory floor here. So we have equipment. We have basically a state-of-the-art facility here in Chicago where we try to make, which is difficult, right, the digital thread visible. And we have machines and there's areas where we can test things here where, for example, they don't have to disrupt their production line or do things in their plant. If you want to take some larger risks, it's easier to do it here at a nonprofit. We're also, again, as a nonprofit, we're very unbiased. So it makes for, it's less about sales, if you will, and more about really solving, the problems that they see in the future. And every large manufacturer, and solution provider, like I said, the AutoCAD, Microsoft, anyone, McKinsey, all these folks that are members that we work with, they all know, that they have a supply chain, right? They all have, millions of small businesses that, are the backbone of these large multinationals. So they want to help them as well. And, we can do it through a neutral space. So I'd say those are kind of 3 very important reasons: that collaboration, the R&D. We've done, I think, over 60 projects and invested $90 million standpoint, bringing money to the table, right, to help. They cost share with us and, to help solve some of these larger problems. And they can form teams, with their competitors, with startups, with academia. And we allow and empower all that to happen right here at the Institute.
How do you see the next year or 2 or the future panning out in terms of what your future plans are, what the MxD is thinking of doing?
Yes, I would say, for us, the future is really bright. Obviously, I'm the CEO here, and my vision is really a lot about implementation. So we just obviously received some more funds. We're really working hard on cybersecurity and workforce and digital twins, augmented reality, like robot. All these areas are super critical and growing. So we just believe the future is huge in the digital space. Like, honestly, I think what we struggle with more here is prioritization and trying to figure out what are the best things that are going forward in the future. And we are also looking forward to a lot of growth. So we would love to, double what we're doing, because we just think the scope and scale is so critical to the future of manufacturing competitiveness here in the United States that, I'd love to have a lot more people coming, and we'd love to expand our reach, particularly with workforce. We'll be rolling out workforce programs all across the United States, really focused on the digital and the cyber area, where we think there is a huge amount of need. As you know, like many of the jobs of the future, they don't even exist today. You don't even know what you're training your folks for. And so we take that very seriously about looking to what our future workforce is. And I would say one thing we didn't touch on that I do think is also important that we do here is we're a big believer in, the diversity that's needed in the manufacturing space. So we know that we need, to increase diversity here from a workforce standpoint. So that includes women. As you know, we, make up over half the population, but are a very small percentage in manufacturing, people of color. So we really do also try to kind of set the example, set some thought leadership on, what's happening in the United States and how important this is, and the digital future, if you will, is just going to be absolutely critical. So we think the future is quite bright. It's really a matter of trying to figure out where are the best areas to move forward in. We look forward to, I would invite everyone, to come out to any of the institutes. I invite you to come out to MxD and see what we're doing. I mean, I feel very passionate, obviously, about this topic, and, people can follow us. We're on social media, we're anywhere. And I just think we would, love, again, lots of what we do is out to the public. We're a nonprofit, so people can come. I will say we are in the process of revising our website. So it's going to get a lot better. Give us another month or two. Again, just, very happy, and it's really a pleasure to talk to you and your audience. So thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you very much for your time, Chandra.
Send us an email at sales@roboticsandautomationnews.com to register for one of our many upcoming webinars. And if you'd like us to host your webinar, we have a range of options, including long-term lead generation packages and marketing campaigns. We look forward to hearing from you soon.